Order, order. Start with questions. Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, Rachel Blake.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question number 1.
Minister.
The new National Short-Term Let's Registration Scheme entered user testing at the end of October to ensure it is robust, easy to use and meets the needs of the scheme ahead of its planned launch later in 2026. Secondary legislation will be required to enact the scheme, and we intend to bring this forward when parliamentary time allows.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I really appreciate the focus and attention that the Minister has brought to this issue that is so essential in my constituency, where about 6,000 homes are lost to short letting. I would be really grateful if she could share with us how she might deal with the fact that the number of nights that properties are let out is captured, because that is an essential part of making sure that properties that are let out under short lets arrangements do not go over the 90-day rule or breach any planning permission. Could she share with us how she'll be approaching that?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful. The registration scheme will collect essential data to help authorities, but as my honourable friend knows, and indeed secured a 10-minute rule bill on the issue, the legislation does not address the issue around data sharing for the number of nights. I do look forward to working with my honourable friend to see if we can rectify this issue to ensure data is shared between platforms and hosts, understand their responsibilities and give local authorities and government the required data. I know from a number of meetings with her how important this issue is to her constituency, and she's a really big campaigner on it.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Minister very much for her. I'm always very impressed with the Minister, and her answers this morning are equal to the impression that I have, and others have in this House as well. Back home in Northern Ireland, the same issue is a problem when it comes to short-term lets. It's about protection of those who are the landlords, but also for those who take it on. Could I ask the Minister, I know the Minister is a regular traveller to Northern Ireland, we appreciate that, by the way, would the Honourable Lady share what's happening here with those back home to ensure that the protection for everyone is equal across this great United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, I'd like to thank the gentleman for his incredibly kind comments, and perhaps following his question I'll set up a meeting with my counterpart to discuss this, and he'd be very welcome to join it.
Right, good job.
Question number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel all warm and happy after that lovely little exchange. This government believes in the power of grassroots sport, and we believe that everyone should have access to quality sport and physical activity. He will know that we recently committed a further £400 million into grassroots sport facilities so that every child and young person has the chance to live out their dreams.
Secretary of State, I think it's Scrooge.
Sorry.
I think.
Oh, yes, sorry. And with permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer this with question 3.
Yeah, we'll live with that.
Can I thank the Secretary of State for that answer? In Spelthorne, we love our sport, and I was playing walking cricket last week with the cricket club. I've been in the ring at the boxing academy. I've been to the darts academy, and we've got Spelthorne FC, we've got Staines Lammas FC, and we have got Ashford Middlesex FC, and I'm inviting the member for Windsor on Saturday to come and watch Windsor and Eton play against my Ashford Middlesex team, and we look forward to a fantastic game. But the jewel in our crown is the Year 11's girls football team at Thamesmead School, who are in the last 32 of the country. And so can she wish them the huge amount of success that we all hope they're going to get when they play the Beacon Academy from Kent on the...
Well, have finished. Come on, Secretary of State.
Well, can I say that we have just announced the first allocations of the £400 million that we're investing into grassroots sport, but I would pay a lot of money to see the honourable gentleman at a dance academy. And can I take the opportunity to wish Thamesmead and both teams, actually, the best of success with what should be a fantastic competition.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, swimming isn't just a sport, it's a very important life skill, particularly for those of us that represent coastal communities. Unfortunately, though, there are over 1,600 swimming pools across the country that are now more than 40 years old. The previous government committed £80 million to renovating those swimming pools. So can I ask the Secretary of State or the Minister what their plans are to continue the legacy of the last government and improve our swimming facilities?
Well, can I thank him for that question? And I think many honourable members will thank him for that question as well. It's something that has been raised with myself and the Sports Minister by members of Parliament consistently over recent years. The Minister for Sport is working very closely with a counterpart at MHCLG to make sure that we address this issue. We've obviously made more funding available. We need to now make sure that it gets to the right places so that every child can access good swimming provision in their local area.
Shannon Minister Louie French.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I refer honourable members to my register of interests. I would like to offer our congratulations on behalf of this side of the House to everyone at Team GB for an incredible Winter Olympic performance. Like many people across this House, I was glued to the excellent coverage during recess, and I was pleased to see online that the Sports Minister was in Milan supporting the team. But we all know that the true value of Team GB's success is their ability to inspire the next generation of athletes. So I asked the Secretary of State, what steps is she taking to secure the legacy of these games, both in terms of the elite and grassroots facilities required for sports to succeed?
Secretary of State.
Thank you. And the Sports Minister has just told me that more than 4,000 people have expressed an interest in skeleton following the Team GB fantastic performance. So it really does show the power of what these things can do. It was an absolute privilege as well to be out in Milan cheering on Team GB during the most successful Winter Olympics ever. And he's absolutely right that what we've got to do now is to make sure that there is a lasting legacy of this to bring forward the next generation. One of the things that I discussed with the team when I was out there in Milan was also making sure that, as well as committing future funding to make sure that our athletes can succeed, bringing people through from the grassroots, as we've just been discussing, that we also recognise in our honours system the people who helped those incredible athletes to get to where they were along that journey. Not just the people who've succeeded, not just the people who've won medals, but it's about time and long overdue that our honours system recognised the grassroots, ordinary men and women who help people to go on to do extraordinary things.
Louie French.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for that answer, and I'm sure we all echo her comments. She will be aware of the widespread concerns regarding the government's plans to water down the powers of Sport England and much-needed protection for grassroots pitches. Just before Christmas, leading sports figures led by former Lioness Jill Scott and Fields and Trust wrote an open letter highlighting their concerns for people's health, well-being and sports more generally if the government allows for sports pitches across the country to be concreted over. So I asked the Secretary of State, what action is her department taking personally to try and force the government to U-turn on this bad policy decision? Thank you.
Well, look, can I just say to him that this government believes that we need a much more sensible and much lighter touch system of regulation in this country, and I think in principle that is something that members on both sides of the House should be able to agree with. But what we don't want to see is a reduction in the grassroots facilities that are available to communities, and the Sports Minister has been working with the Housing Minister and Sport England. They met recently to discuss this, to make sure that we have a sensible way of proceeding that sees no reduction in the amount of facilities that are available.
James S.
Number 4, sir.
Minister.
Our National Youth Strategy sets out our plan to ensure every young person has somewhere to go, something to do and someone who cares. It's backed by over £500 million of DCMS funding over the next 3 years.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my constituency, North Woolwich, I have based Fight for Peace, which is a boxing and martial arts facility that also delivers employment skills and education skills for young people, helping divert them from gangs and knife crime. But like so many organisations over the last few years, they've faced a tough time. Does the Minister agree with me that organisations such as this, who support over 1,300 people and employ over 50, are vital for our urban and inner city communities like mine? And what more can the government do to secure their future? And can I extend an invite for them to visit me in North Woolwich to see the fantastic work they do?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. Boxing clubs like Fight for Peace play a huge role in supporting young people's physical and mental health. Through Sport England, England Boxing will receive over £9 million of funding between 2022 and 2029. I recently met with the Boxing All-Party Group and I'd be delighted to meet with him and indeed visit his constituency.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Caroline Downey.
Very much, Mr Speaker. We all know that actions speak louder than words, and what we've seen so far is a reduction in the urban cricket domes that were committed to by the last government, the scrapping of our National Citizenship Service without anything to replace it, and now supposedly an argument over who's going to be funding school sport. Social mobility depends upon participation. Research by Sky found that girls who play after-school sport in the UK are 50% more likely to later get professional roles as adults. What is the government actually doing? Can the Minister give us grassroots examples in our urban communities of where things are improving and not actually getting worse?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to the Chair of the Select Committee and indeed for the work she does, and it was a pleasure to meet her again yesterday. I don't recognise her representation of cricket domes. The previous government simply didn't fund them. This government did and has announced 2 new ones, alongside the £400 million of grassroots sports funding that the Secretary of State referred to. And of course, she references the National Citizen Service. We, of course, announced our National Youth Strategy, the first in over 10 years. Question number 5, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This government is championing the UK's living heritage, the crafts, the customs and festivals important for local pride and community cohesion. Following the ratification of the 2003 UNESCO Convention, we are inviting communities to submit their traditions to inventories of living heritage in the UK. Some examples of living heritage, Mr Speaker: Up Helliah in Shetland, for example, the Notting Hill Carnival. Some might even argue the member for Strangford.
Rachel Hawkins, don't encourage him.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The end of May will mark the 50th Luton International Carnival, the UK's largest one-day carnival, and I think 50 years qualifies as a UK tradition, Mr Speaker, because it's definitely a Luton tradition. So does the Minister agree with me that events such as Luton Carnival are vital in celebrating the rich cultural diversity of our country and strengthening community cohesion? And may I invite him to Luton to join in with Carnival this year?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'd be delighted to go to Luton Carnival because it sounds slightly less scary than participating in Skeleton. We would welcome a submission to the Living Heritage inventories for Luton Carnival, which is an important event in my honourable friend's constituency, as she has laid out. And congratulations to everyone involved in organising the Carnival, not just now but in the last 50 years. We want to celebrate the UK's diversity and encourage diaspora communities to contribute, ensuring all practices are fully represented in our Living Heritage inventories. I will pass your kind invitation, as well as to me, on to the Minister for Heritage in the other place, who I know had an enjoyable time learning about Luton's rich heritage when she visited last year.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. There is no finer UK tradition lived out still than drinking a cold beer and watching your local cricket team that have been there for decades. I recently visited St Anne's Cricket Club. I should declare an interest. My dad was the professional there in 1973. He probably will not thank me for saying that declaration is probably now time expired. But those clubs have relied on the revenue from those bars to support that wonderful tradition for many years. But the changes in national insurance costs and other cost pressures have completely eliminated the profits many of those clubs make and are struggling to reinvest into facilities. So what more support will the government be announcing for our traditional British cricket clubs in the future?
Minister.
He makes a great point, and congratulations to his father at St Abbs Cricket Club being the professional in 1973, I think you said, because if you get into trouble for saying it, I've just said it as well. So, look, we know our cricket clubs and all our sports clubs are right at the heart of our communities. We want them to thrive. They should be thriving. This government is fully committed to making sure all our sports clubs thrive, because it's not just about enjoying that cricket with a cold beer, as he says that he does, as many hundreds of thousands do every Saturday, but it's also about young people being involved in the way in which that takes them into the future of work and the future of sport.
Come.
Number 6, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In December, we published Youth Matters, the first national youth strategy that this country has had in nearly 2 decades. The Youth Investment Fund and Better Youth Spaces Fund have together invested £750,000 in youth services in Perry Bar, and we've recently announced an additional £100,000 of funding for Birmingham to undertake preparatory work for the Young Futures Hub and local youth transformation.
Welcome.
Mr Speaker, I know that I wouldn't be in this House the mother of all democracies, and certainly wouldn't be a barrister if I didn't benefit from youth centres in my ward of Aston, and I recognise how important they are. We've lost somewhere in the region of 50 youth workers in Birmingham. My constituency of Birmingham Perry Bar lost out on the Pride of Place funding, which is £20 million, which we could have benefited from. Given the importance of youth centres, and the loss of Oakland's youth centre in my constituency, Lozal's recreation group, which is at risk of closing down. I asked the Minister if she'd meet with me and representatives of youth clubs in my constituency to see how we can ensure that that service remains within my area.
Yeah, can I thank him for that? And I absolutely share his assessment about the vital role of youth provision and the devastating impact that 73% cuts to youth provision under the last government made to the life chances of young people. The Sports Minister would be more than happy to meet with him to discuss this issue.
Ian Sollum, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. According to the Office for National Statistics, 3.8 million people report feeling lonely, with young people consistently amongst the loneliest groups. And is it any wonder when we have seen youth centres shuttered and libraries boarded up and the very places that bring people together hollowed out? The Liberal Democrats have a plan to change this, to create a new wave of third spaces centred around something simple but incredibly powerful: shared hobbies. We want to bring people with shared interests together, creating places where these can thrive. So could the Minister tell me what she's doing to tackle loneliness through rebuilding community life and shared experience? And will she seriously consider our proposals for a bold new wave of hobby hubs to help restore the social fabric of our communities?
Just before you do, it is linked to Perry Bar in Birmingham. I think he's slightly well away from Birmingham, and I'm not quite sure that it links into youth services. Good luck.
I am sure, Mr Speaker, that the people of Birmingham Perry Bar are clamouring for a hobby hub. And in that spirit, I'll address the very important point that he makes. Our National Youth Strategy is the first time that we've put young people in the driving seat of their own lives. We handed over money and power to a generation of young people who told us that they needed three things. They needed somewhere to go, something to do, and someone who cares. That's why we're investing in the next generation of youth centres and youth workers. And to the chair of the Select Committee's point, I was delighted a couple of weeks ago to be in Grimsby, where we opened an on-side youth zone that had people queuing for miles down the road to come in and see the incredible provision that we've been able to fund and to back. I'll certainly consider the proposal that he's making and be very keen to work with him as we help to rebuild youth work and youth centres, connect people to one another and turn around over a decade of decline.
Peter Swallow.
Question number 7, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Well, in December, we published Youth Matters, the first government strategy for over a decade for young people up and down the country. This will, of course, run alongside other major government investments, including the Youth Guarantee and expansion of mental health support teams in schools.
Speaker, last week I dropped into the Ways Youth Centre in Bracknell to celebrate its 60th anniversary. That's 60 years of supporting young people in Bracknell Forest, developing their skills and helping them find and use their voice. This is a government that is backing the Youth Centre with our National Youth Strategy, which young people from the Ways contributed to. I'm delighted the government has announced more capital funding to support youth centres after many years of neglect. Can I ask my honourable friend what specific funding pots are available for the Ways? Because when your youth centre is 60 years old, there's always need to invest in the day-to-day upkeep.
Well, I pay tribute to the honourable gentleman, who is a strong champion for his constituency and indeed for all the work of Ways over the last 60 years. The strategy is backed by £500 million of new funding, £350 million of which will be available till the end of March 2030 to refurbish or build youth facilities through our Better Youth Spaces programme. We are committed to working with areas of greatest need across the length and the breadth of England, and I'll write further to him.
Question 8, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have not had personally any discussions with my counterpart in the Hellenic Republic on the future of the management of the sculptures. The sculptures are legally owned by the trustees of the British Museum. The chair of the British Museum has been in discussions with the Greek government about a partnership, including reciprocal loans.
Drew George.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm grateful to the Minister for that response, and I should declare an interest as the chair of the British Association for the Reunification of the Parthenon sculptures over the last 20 years. The British Museum's planned redevelopment will necessitate its board agreeing the relocation of many of its exhibits, including the Parthenon sculptures. And in the light of this, it is suggested that the time is now right for the museum, with the consent of government and support and constructive support of government, to facilitate an exhibition of those sculptures in the Acropolis Museum in Athens, where they can be displayed alongside other artefacts there. Would ministers agree that should such a project be agreed between the museum, that this would enhance the reputation of the United Kingdom, as it would be seen as a gracious act between two nations that have long-term international allies?
Minister.
Well, thank you for the question. And it's clear that the UK and Greece do indeed have a strong bilateral relationship built on, of course, our shared history and our values. We greatly value that friendship that exists between our people and our governments today. It is for the British Museum to seek to reach an agreement with the Greek government on the loan of the sculptures, as the British Museum is operationally independent from government, as he knows with his long track record on this. But if they do reach an agreement, the government wouldn't stand in the way of such a loan.
Gareth Thomas.
Mr Speaker, the clearly remarkable Faye Bond took up athletic... Question 9, I beg your pardon.
Minister.
The Government is committed to ensuring people of all ages should have the opportunity to maintain an active lifestyle. Sport England annually invests over £250 million of lottery and exchequer funding into grassroots sport to support people of all ages, and this includes multiple campaigns designed to encourage active lifestyles.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Try again, Mr Speaker. The clearly remarkable Faye Bond took up athletics at the age of 90, winning 3 gold medals last year at the age of 101 at the US Senior Olympics. The oldest of over 12,400 older athletes who took part. Given the many benefits of an active lifestyle in later life, when does my honourable friend think that the first UK Senior Olympics might take place?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Team GB at the Winter Olympics. It was a real pleasure to be out in Italy cheering them on in what was their most successful Winter Games yet. Now, I pay tribute to his constituent. We want everyone, whatever their age, to be able to be active, and we're always interested to hear ideas about future major sporting events.
Dress little on, Fox.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Bridgewater is the home of Carnival. At nearly 180 years old, it's the oldest carnival in the UK. And this fantastic cultural event promotes an active lifestyle amongst the whole community. However, Mr Speaker, every year the cost of complying with legislation makes it that little bit harder to continue. So will the Minister meet with members of the Carnival and me to discuss what support might be available so that this fantastic spectacle continues for another 180 years?
It's a shoe-on question. Good luck.
I'm aware of the issue, and I'd be delighted to meet the honourable member to discuss it further.
Thank
you, Mr Speaker. Question number 10, please.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We encourage local authorities to continue to work in partnership with key players in local arts ecosystems such as Arts Council England and make the most of the opportunities provided by the mayoral strategic authorities to deliver strategically for culture in their areas. Furthermore, the Government is providing substantial financial support to local governments, committing an additional £3.4 billion in grant funding by 28-29. This commitment is underpinned by the Creative Industry Sector Plan, which includes a £150 million Creative Places Growth Fund to support.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Local councils in my Oxfordshire constituency of Didcot and Wantage work hard to secure public arts funding through developer contributions for our growing population. However, some existing cultural venues are struggling. The much-loved Vale and Downland Museum in Wantage is having to rely on one-off grants to plug funding gaps and has had an annual average deficit of £24,000 per year since 2020. So in that context, what more can the Minister do to help our local councils provide funding for museums and cultural venues in my part of Oxfordshire?
Minister. Mr Speaker, the honourable gentleman raises a very good point. Our Museums Renewal Fund, worth £20 million, has supported 3 museum groups in Oxfordshire, including Vale and Downland Museum in his own constituency. Our new Museum Transformation Programme and a 5% funding uplift for the ACE National Portfolio Organisation and the Museum Development Network will further support the museum sector in 26-27. Museums in difficulty are encouraged to reach out to Arts Council England as they can provide guidance and support. And can I encourage him maybe to enter the Town of Culture competition, which has been very popular with local members all across this chamber, to maybe see if he can get some more funding in that way.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Stafford Gateshouse Theatre is absolutely smashing it in my constituency of Stafford Eccleshall and the Villagers. Welcomed 150,000 people last year, likely to welcome 170,000 this year, and the pantomime alone welcomed 19,500 people. Oh yes, it did.
Oh, no, it didn't.
Thank you. Does the Minister agree with me that thriving venues like this in towns like Stafford demonstrate the appetite for culture in our local places? And could the Minister tell me what they're doing to support towns like Stafford?
Minister.
Well, thank you for being a wonderful champion for Stafford and for culture and arts in Stafford. We announced in February £1.5 billion over this Parliament for the arts everywhere. A fund that's broken down into making sure we can support an infrastructure in every part of the country. But the Secretary of State's commitment and the Department's commitment is to make sure there's arts and culture everywhere for everyone, and we'll do everything we possibly can as a Department to make sure that gets to Stafford.
Mayor.
11, please, Mr Speaker.
Stay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. She is a fantastic champion for young people in her constituency, and she will know, having worked with us to deliver the first national youth strategy in decades, that we are allocating over £500 million worth of funding for youth provision over the next 3 years. But most importantly, she will also know that the way that we're funding is changing. Rather than impose settlements on communities for things that they didn't ask for and didn't need, our funding is driven by the grassroots, by what communities need. If they need a new building, if they need transportation, if they need different facilities, whatever it is that they need, we will pay for.
Well.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I really welcome the universal approach of our new youth strategy, but I worry that in constituencies like mine in Ribble Valley, where communities are small and often far away from city centre youth hubs, young people often miss out on support because their family may be just about managing, but dual career households and long hours leave little time to taking children to activities. This country has an inequality problem, but it also has a productivity problem, and I've welcomed conversations with the Work and Pensions Secretary on how we can unlock real entrepreneurship, ambition and opportunity for young people to not only reduce unemployment rates, but also to unlock and capitalise on the incredible energy and ideas that come from our young people. So how is she ensuring that while we rightly provide those with most need really youth support, we are also providing a third space of ideas and creativity to all young people? I'd be very keen to work with her to make sure that we get the right funding for the right provision in her constituency. And can I just say to her, I'm working, obviously, as she would expect, very closely with the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions and the Education Secretary to make sure that we hang on to young people from the earlier stage all the way through into adulthood. But as somebody who represents a very rural constituency myself, I absolutely recognise the challenges she talked about. That is why we're doing this differently, led by the grassroots, and I'd be very happy to talk to her about how we deliver for people in Ribble Valley.
Roberts.
Mr Speaker, it's all very well the Secretary of State talking about her version of support for youth services, but it's of little consolation to young people who can't get a job because youth unemployment is up under this government. Will she relay that message to the Chancellor?
First of all, he talks about my version of support. It's not my version of support, actually. This government has put this generation of young people that were so badly let down by his government over many years back in the driving seat of their own lives. This is not my strategy. This is their strategy, and we're determined to deliver on their promise. And can I say to him, too, that it's a bit rich for somebody on his side of the House to sit there and talk about letting down a generation of young people after the devastation that they wreaked on a generation for so long. And the fact that in the budget, as he well knows, we announced investment in young people to make sure that the million young people that they left on the scrap heap, not in education, employment and training, now have guaranteed work, education or training as of right. What did his party do? They opposed every single measure in that budget. They opposed all of the ways that we proposed to pay for it, and they labelled this a boost to welfare provision, when he knows full well that this is the lifeline that young people have been waiting for.
You go to Topicals, David Chadwick.
Question number 1, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Many members across the House have raised with me their deep concern following the broadcast of a highly offensive racial slur during the BBC's broadcast of the BAFTAs. As members would expect, I was in contact with the Director General immediately following that broadcast, and I am pleased that there is now an investigation ongoing to ensure that this never happens again. Can I also take the opportunity to congratulate Team GB on the most successful Winter Olympics ever? And to update the House that since we last met, we have unveiled the biggest investment into the arts in history. This government is committed to ensuring that the arts really are for everyone, everywhere.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Despite that spirited performance this weekend, Welsh rugby is in crisis. with clubs demanding a vote of no confidence and supporters fearing a stitch-up that wipes the Ospreys off the map, ending professional rugby in Swansea, does the Minister agree with me that the WRU leadership has lost the confidence of the grassroots game and should step aside?
Can I say to him that rugby union plays a vital role in our national identity? It matters hugely to many members of the House, almost as much as rugby league, the finest form of rugby. But I do appreciate the serious concerns that Welsh rugby fans, including him, have at the moment. He knows that the UK government has no role in the operations of Welsh rugby union. Welsh sports policy is the responsibility of the Welsh Government and Sport Wales, and I would strongly suggest that the honourable member should raise his serious concerns with them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having seen youth services slapped by the coalition government and Staffordshire's youth service shut down completely 13 years ago, I very much welcome this government's commitment to £500 million to reverse the damage done by the parties opposite. In Staffordshire, we missed out on the Better Youth Spaces programme, so as the department rolls out Youth Futures Hubs, youth centres and more youth workers, could the Minister assure my constituents that areas like Cannock Chase that have no youth service whatsoever will benefit from Labour's reinvestment in the futures of our young people?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. Youth services, of course, saw a 73% reduction in England under the last government. Too many areas like his then had no youth services. That's why our national youth strategy, backed by over £500 million, is reversing that trend, and I'd be happy to discuss it further with him.
Right, we go to Shadow Secretary of State, Nigel Huddleston.
Thank you. As mentioned a moment ago by the Secretary of State, at this week's BAFTA Awards, a great celebration of British creativity was marred by the unnecessary airing of involuntary comments by Tourette's campaigner John Davidson. It appears a microphone was placed close to John and some offensive comments were aired despite a 2-hour delay. This no doubt well-intended attempt at inclusivity has caused great anxiety to John and great offence to many others. So does the Secretary of State agree that the BBC and BAFTA must not only investigate this matter, but also apologise?
I'm grateful to him for raising this, and also to the chair of the Select Committee, who I know has raised her concerns directly with the BBC as well. He will have heard what I said a moment ago. I think it's fair to say that this government and I were not satisfied with the initial response from the BBC, and we do need to see much swifter action taken in these sorts of instances, and action that results in this not happening again. I think we're all deeply concerned that there have been too many incidents of this kind. Can I also thank him for the sensitive way in which he raised this, because we all want to make sure that the BAFTAs and all of our award ceremonies can be inclusive places where people with Tourette's who've been shut out of society for too long can be fully included. My honourable friend, the Minister for the Arts, has met with BAFTA this week to talk about how we exercise a better duty of care to all concerned going forwards.
Nigel Huddleston.
I thank the Secretary of State for that response. Now, when the Labour government cut the budget for the listed places of worship scheme, it was suggested that we shouldn't worry because it never runs out of money. Well, it has now run out of money. And as the details for a new scheme have not yet been announced, uncertainty is growing and vital repair work is being postponed or cancelled altogether. So will the government now follow the Conservative lead and commit to fully restoring the budget for the listed places of worship scheme and commit to releasing information about the new scheme as a matter of urgency?
Look, he knows that this is something that is important to this government. These incredible buildings and places of worship stand at the centre of our communities, and it matters deeply that we preserve and protect them. But he will also know that there were serious challenges with the previous scheme, including the fact that his government left the economy in such a parlous state that there was no funding available going forwards, despite their commitments. We have committed to a new scheme that ensures that we can get funding not just to those places that can already raise the money for their own buildings, but to those places where money is in short supply. We are designing that scheme, and we will bring forward details of that shortly.
John Whitney.
There are a growing number of ex-footballers suffering from CTE, a form of dementia caused by a repeated heading of the ball. These ex-players have been felt let down by the PFA, which has only provided support for those suffering from CTE once funding from the NHS, social services and family assets have been exhausted, leaving taxpayers rather than football bodies footing the bill for care. What steps is the Minister taking to ensure that our heroes of the game are given appropriate support in their hour of need, and to ensure that competition organisers provide adequate funding for ex-players with CTE?
Minister. I know this is a concern to members across the House. I've met with and corresponded with a number. It's an issue that is incredibly important to both myself and the Secretary of State, who met with players impacted by this to hear their stories. I will be hosting a roundtable discussion shortly with the football bodies to explore what more can be done. Our priority is for the Football Authority to provide greater clarity on funding available and ensure there is enough money available to provide those impacted with the support they need.
My honourable friend for Old Bexley has drawn our attention to the fact that Sport England is losing its consultee status. This is at a time when sports clubs are facing business rate increases by as much as 46%. Are ministers alive to the prospect of sporting facilities becoming increasingly attractive building propositions as grey belt?
They are not losing their status. There's a consultation. Myself and the Planning Minister have met a number of times on this. Having committed £400 million into grassroots sports, we of course don't want to see playing fields and grassroots sports reduced.
In coming years, Cambridge, like many other places, will see many new homes being built, but we need to build communities, not just houses, and a cultural component is absolutely key to that. So can the Minister tell us what he's doing to make sure that happens?
Minister. Yes, Mr Speaker, it's not just about building homes and building economic drivers, it's about building cultural and heritage communities as well. It's fantastic to see so many infrastructure projects taking shape across Cambridgeshire and Cambridge this year. Cambridge already has a fantastic cultural offer, with Arts Council England's national portfolio programme already supporting organisations like the new International Encounter and Oblique Arts, both of which work with communities across the region. I would encourage him to ask all of his cultural organisations to look at the £1.5 billion Arts Everywhere fund that was announced last month, that record funding, and maybe City or Town of Culture.
Callum Anderson. Rishi Sunak.
Richmond, North Yorkshire is home to brilliant cultural assets like the Richmond Castle, Georgian Theatre, the station and the Green Howards Museum. It has a unique place in our national story, with a history stretching back to Norman times and a history of successfully putting on community events like Mayfest. Mr Speaker, it is also, this gateway to the Dales is also the UK's most copied place name, the original Richmond with 100 across the world from America to India. So can I ask the Secretary of State to join me in congratulating Richmond Yorkshire's Community Interest Company, who are putting a great bid together to be the UK's town of culture.
Can I thank him for his championing of Richmond's town of culture bid. I've been following with interest the work that the Community Interest Company is doing there. They've brought together an incredible group of people and gathered huge public support for the bid. And the question that the Mayor of Richmond asked recently was, why not Richmond? I would absolutely concur with those remarks and encourage them to continue.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The National Youth Strategy offers us a once-in-a-generation opportunity to improve access to youth services for young people in Bracknell Forest and across the country. Can I ask my right honourable friend what discussions she has had with colleagues in the Ministry of Defence to tie this together with the Strategic Defence Review's target of expanding access to the cadet forces by 30% by 2030?
The 30 by 30 programme seeks to recruit 40,000 more cadets across the UK. We are working with the MOD to do this. They do incredibly important work, and he raises an important issue.
Pete Whishaw.
On Saturday, the cream of UK music will gather at Manchester for the annual Brit Awards, and I'm sure the Honourable Lady would like to wish everybody all the best at that. UK music has grown for the 11th consecutive year, and UK artists are starting once again to re-emerge in global markets with the success of Lola Young and Olivia Dean. But there are issues. Artist remuneration, touring in Europe, and the threat of AI continues to emerge as threats. So will she continue to engage with the sector and assure that all of these issues are addressed?
Can I thank him for that and say how absolutely delighted I am that the Brits will be held in Manchester this year, and I will of course be in attendance. But he raises a really serious point, and whether it's the work that we're doing on the voluntary levy to get funding into grassroots music venues, or the work that we're doing with the music industry to solve the challenges posed by the AI and copyright issue, he is absolutely right to say that we need to work to support what is not just an incredible industry that brings joy to millions of people all over the world, but something that is one of the UK's best exports.
Final question, Dame Chiomoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Northern industry built this nation, but the previous government did not care about our industrial heritage. One reason why Newcastle's iconic swing bridge no longer swings. Now, the Minister for Heritage encouraged us to take the steps necessary to safeguard its future in a recent visit. But what help can she provide to support the funding necessary to get the swing bridge swinging?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I commend my honourable friend's campaign for Newcastle's swing bridge on its 150th anniversary year. I know my honourable friend in the other place has been dealing very closely with her on those issues. I understand Newcastle City Council is leading a feasibility study on returning the bridge to full operation, which should help to understand if and how this magnificent Grade 2 listed building can be, and scheduled monument can be brought back to life. And I share my honourable friend's aspiration to allow the bridge to swing.
Right, thank you. At the front bench, change over.